Okay, I'm Dr. Daniel Cobb. I'm the director of MEGA. Today we're here with STEM Sunday, and we're going to be talking about smart microscopy. So we're actually writing a book, and this will be one chapter in the book. It will be called Large Microscopes. So there are large microscopes, and there are small microscopes, and there are digital microscopes. There's all kinds of microscopes. So these large ones are the ones usually used in laboratory and so on. The small ones are usually used as portable to take somewhere. Large ones have a lot of advantages. The problem is they're heavy. These are 16-pound microscopes, and they're pretty heavy to be carrying around. We're going to start with the microscope in the different parts. We're going to go over as you kind of would use it. So the first thing what we have is the eyepieces. So take them out, put one in each hand, look at it. These are called eyepieces or oculars. And usually they go anywhere from maybe 2 times power to 10 times power. So your magnification starts there. Now, just like in telescopes, you'll find that you have different kind of eyepieces, so you have to find the best place for your pupil, your eye, to get the best view through it. There are some that are wide field, and in telescopes you buy lots of them, and the better ones are very expensive, so put it back in. Okay. Then the next piece of the optical system is you have 4, usually 3 or 4, depending on what you've got on this rotator. The small ones are the low power, and go up and rotate it to the high power. So if you have 4, you have low power, medium power, high power, and oil immersion. So we will not be doing a whole lot on oil immersion to start with. Most of what we will do, we'll be doing low power. So take it and rotate it. Find a low power. Always start on low power. Always start on low power. Otherwise you may crack your lenses and crack your slides. So the next thing you have to understand on the cheaper microscopes like these, which are pretty cheap. For example, here's my microscope from medicine. That's a Zeiss. That was a very expensive microscope, somewhere in the range of $12,000. It cameras a range of $3,000 to $6,000, but that's quite a while ago. So we can get near that quality off of $200 to $400 microscopes that you see here now. So what we got here is the various powers. Now we'll take off that one, unscrew it. Okay, now you take off the second one. So you'll take off the low power, take off the medium power. Okay, now it's very important that you know what that's going to do. So on there they will tell you what it is. They will tell you the power of it. Okay, they will have probably a color code to tell you if you're doing it where you have to look down, green or blue, so you learn what the colors are, which one is low power, which one is high power, and so on. And they'll also give you the numerical aperture, the NA. The NA will determine the quality of the resolution. Okay, so we won't get into that a lot, but we do have a book on digital color where we cover the refractive index and numerical aperture a lot. So as a general rule, you want a low numerical aperture. That'll give you the best resolution. So what one do you have? Can you read it? Read the numbers.
4/2.1.
Okay, I'm not getting. Can you read yours loud?
10 out of 0.25.
Okay. Screw them back in. Now the simple math that you need here is this ocular times the objective. So if your objective is 40 power and your lens ocular is 10, 10 times 40 is 400. So now you have 400x, 400 magnification. Okay? If it's 100, 10 times 100 is 1,000 times. So at 1,000 times, we're not going to be using that for a while, is when you have to switch from air to oil. You need to have that medium transmit that image better, and it does it through what we call oil immersion. So it never goes through the air. The light goes through the specimen, through the oil, through the objectives, through the ocular, to your eyes. So that's how you determine what power you've got. You have to know the power of the objective and the power of that, and then multiply them there. So if you're going to look at a blood smear and do a differential count, for example, you would use 1,000 plus power, and that's with oil immersion. So a lot of these microscopes now, they say they go up to 2,500, but in essence they probably don't go that high. So most of the stuff is done oil immersion at 1,000 to 1,200, maybe 1,500. Everything else is done low. So then we have underneath here what is called the stage. So the stage is an XY axis. So you need to look at that. You do what we call a cattle run, like they do for skiing and cattle. You'll take a slide and you go over, just like we do for drones now on a run. So you go over, back, over, you cover the whole slide, and that will give you the count that you need for a smear, a blood smear, for example. That's XY axis. Okay. Got it? Then you have the coarse and the fine adjustment here, so roll that up and down. That's your Z. X, Y, Z. So you have coarse and you have fine. So as a general rule, you always start with low power, okay? And then you bring it in with the coarse till it looks like it's good. And what you'll probably see first, because you're seeing depth now, you'll see the back of the slide. Then as you go up, hopefully you'll see your image, and at the top you'll see the front of the slide. So you'll see something that will look like cracked glass or whatever, and then you go through the image. The image many times you won't see. This is where you have to take the image and tweak it with a fine adjustment. And it takes a lot of training to get this right for different kinds of slides, which we'll go over to some extent too. Okay. Then we have underneath here, put your hand down here, it's called a condenser. A lot of the cheaper small microscopes will not have a condenser. Condenser does exactly what it says. It condenses the light into a very fine focus beam the way you want it. So we'll go through a minute the power of condenser and different kind of condensers. Okay, so you have to bring that up and down until you get the focus that you want. So this is where learning light ray physics is important. Okay, and then learning concave and concave lenses so that you can work all this and get the best focus light, because you're dealing with very, very small items that are magnified quite a little bit. Okay, that's called the condenser. Okay, now go up to the camera. This is, you can have the old type microscope. You have just one, a monocular. Pretty tough, because we're used to using two eyes. So most people now will want a binoc. So this is a binocular, which means that both right and left eye, and therefore just like in glasses or goggles, you have to adjust it to your pupil, what your pupils are, and so on, out and in. So most of these will go out and they'll go in, and you'll have to adjust that. So there's a lot of adjustments you have to do to set up a microscope to do whatever you want to do. Okay, this one here is called a tri-oc. Tri-ocular means you have a third one. Now on some of them you can pull it, you'll have a knob to pull, and then all the light will go up. So that probably is good, except it's kind of a pain in the neck. But therefore you get 100% of light going to the camera, which is the equivalent of your eye. On some of them, a prism was separated. Some of it will go up and some will come to your eye. So obviously the illumination to the camera and the resolution might not be as good. So now let's talk a little bit about cameras. This is called a tri-ocular tube. So you buy a microscope that's got a tri-oc first. And they come in relatively cheap, even small microscopes. So as a general rule, today you always buy a tri-oc. Don't buy anything else. And then you're going to take cameras, and some of them come with cheap little cameras, but you can buy better cameras. This camera here happens to be one, and if it's got an antenna on, you know more than likely that's going to transmit it to your cell phone, your computer, or whatever. So this one will transmit and also attach. So in the field of imaging now we've got some new problems. The first problem is your computer or your laptop takes USB video and audio in, just the way it is. But it puts HDMI out. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's the standard on the market. So basically you're kind of stuck with that unless you know what to buy. So this one here puts out a Wi-Fi signal and more than likely a USB. Take that camera out, hold it up. Here, hold this one next to it. You can see they pretty well look the same. Make it so he can see it. But they are not the same. That one there is a little more expensive and does a few more things. That will put out an HDMI signal. So you do want an HDMI signal because that's pretty standard in the world of moving up into higher power, higher class video and so on. So USB is okay, but when you start to attach it to other systems such as a video switcher, now you're moving into a system approach. So you can put the cameras back up. Okay, now comes the next thing. You obviously need power. You need light. So my first microscope I'll show later on in our small microscope session, you had a mirror there, and then you got a powerful light to shine the mirror in, and then the light would reflect it up. Well, that kind of went out in the 1940s, so it's 1920, 1940, 1950 maybe, but then came your built-in lights. So now you have built-in lights. Turn the switch on. And now you need to know something about light. This is where this book on digital colors is very important. It says digital color for astronomers, but it doesn't matter if you're using a telescope or a microscope. In fact, the first work we did with the moon on the telescope, we used a microscope camera. So, and then the cameras come in black and white or color. Most people use color now. In the high-powered world of astronomy, they use what they call black and white, then they turn red, green, blue into color. So if they're using a color camera, the camera does that with a filter. They're called Bayer's filter, and they call it a single-shot camera. So if you ever see that single-shot camera written in a book, that means it's a camera the way most people are used to it, and that's not the way most professionals do astronomy. So Okay, now with the light, you have usually a rheostat. Turn the light down, up, and you're going to have to get it the proper illumination. We're not going to teach it, and maybe in the near future when we do some high-powered work. It's called curvature illumination. You set everything up first to get the exact focus and light you want, and so on. Most people don't do that, and it's like most students in school in biology don't do that. They'll just start putting a slide in, start tweaking it, and so on. So basically they'll get to where they want. Okay, now we're going to cover one other thing here. Slides. Do you have a slide on yours? No? Okay. The reason I'm showing these first is because a smart microscope takes a smart slide. So when did a microscope become smart? When did a telescope become smart? Well, when you add something that we call smart to it. Okay? When we add a camera to it, this is now probably a smart microscope. So now slides started off a few years ago with this company, Toys R Us. They actually had a Toys R Us store here in Killeen for a long time. I bought this here. And they were the first ones that came out with smart slides. We're going to go over in the book slides. Slides are 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch. So on both sides you have labels. In the middle you have your specimen. So each of them are 1 inch. So it's 1 inch round or 1 inch square. Okay. So when we say a smart slide, this one here, the first one on the market, advertises smart slides. Now this is a company that bought them out. They went out of business. This one now, Explore Scientifica, has come out with this set. It's a little bit different than that set, but the concept is the same. A smart slide means in the earlier days that you had a QR code on there. Most of the time the QR code went to the big web server. And on a web server, for example, if you had a blood smear on there, it would have the description of the blood smear. And it would have it in 4 or 5 languages. That one, it was in Spanish, Portuguese, German, English, and French. So, I don't remember exactly what this one is, but she just put one of the slides in, and those slides will have, as I say, a QR code. Now, if we move forward into this world of smart slides, we are researching that and testing it, and we can put a QR code on one side and a label on the other side that says blood smear, or says frog leg, or says housefly leg, whatever. But we also can put under there an NFC code. With an NFC code, there's near field communication, there's no electricity needed to transmit information from that slide to your cell phone. So now it can go to a YouTube, which is what we intend to do with our blood smear. And our eye, the first thing we'll be teaching is the eyeball, the retina, because we need that to any type of astronomy or microscopy. So we can put a good YouTube video on a microscope or the eye on there, and they can be looking at that while they're looking at it through the microscope, and they can follow it without a teacher around. So these are called smart scopes with smart slides. Okay. Now let's just cover one other aspect of this. Here, pick that up. Take that. Okay, this is the kit that you can buy from this company. We try not to push a company because sometimes when we push them, by the time you look at this video in a few years, maybe they're out of business. But anyway, this is called Amscope. Very good company. It makes very good semi-professional microscopes in China. So anyway, this is a kit that will give you condensers that you need. Give me the condenser. Now look at it. You need a different kind of condenser for dark field and for phase. So that condenser would have to come off, or you put this on top of there, depending on the brand you buy. But the condenser has to be different to condense the light. Now if you think about a dark field, means that the field is dark. So the light is going to come around the edges. So you'll see this little bug there, and you'll see he'll be lit up, but around him everything will be dark. So you've got to have the light in such a way that it lights up the image, but everything else is dark. It's called dark field. We haven't gone into a lot in phase work. We did a little bit in radio, what phasing is, and so on. But anyway, also if you're going to do that kind of work, you need to buy the kit because you actually have to use a different objective. Now if you look at the objective on there, it'll say pH, probably for phasing. So if you want to do phase work in dark field, in our case what we've got is 2 microscopes. We might need one set up all the time for dark field if we're doing water quality analysis, let's say, or we may just do bright field. Phase is a little bit uncommon in the world of microscopy. Most people don't learn it and don't do it. Then there's one more that we're all familiar with, glow in the dark. It's another one that's uncommon but very good and very useful. It's called fluorescence. Okay, so you light up the thing by the same as you light up with black light, ultraviolet light. You light up a dancer or people on stage, whatever. So within some organisms, they have the ability to become fluorescent. If anybody knows what fluorescent lights are, we have them all over stores and so on, or used to anyway, and it fluoresces. So now that's the fluorescent microscope, and again that only takes a special stain, so we probably won't be doing a lot of that with anything we do. We will be doing in the near future, and we're going to start tomorrow. Texas has what we call Texas Stream Team. What they have is citizen scientists throughout Texas belong to organizations that go and test the water once a month and then send it to the big computer in the sky. And then they print out maps for the whole state on there. So it's not uncommon for your lake. People swim in the lake, they boat in the lake, they fish in the lake. It's not uncommon for a lake to turn bad. Can't swim in it. Okay, can't fish in it. Fish can't live in it. So they must know what the algae content is. They must know what the oxygen content is. They must know what the pH is. So you tell most of those things by the chemical composition, but you also have to know the live competition in the animal kingdom and or the plant world. So what we're going to be going over mostly will be in the animal kingdom, what we call plankton. And we actually have plankton nets, and we're going to be teaching that in the very near future, how to use a drone to fly out of the lake. Right now you have to go out in a canoe, go down and sample something 10 feet below the water or 20 feet below the water, bring it up, take it back to shore, bring it home, make sure these bugs live, so you have to freeze them or do something to preserve them, and then look at them in the laboratory. or you can do it on site. That's what we're going to teach with the small microscopes that work on USB power. We didn't go over that, but you can see here, these work off of electricity. So there are some microscopes that work off of electricity, some of our small ones, and they work off of 4AA batteries too, either way. So that's the USA batteries. And then some of these microscopes work only off of USB. So basically that's the kind that will probably tie into your laptop. So the laptop will send the power, it'll have the power on the USB, which is usually 2.0 or 3.0, that has the power, send the power to drive this system. And these LCD lights now, you have to remember, are very powerful. They have to push a lot of light. They're not the usual LEDs. So if you're going to use a power bank, it won't last very long. Okay, you'll find it go very quickly because that's a high power. So we do it within our electricity. We teach Ohm's law where they can calculate the watts. So for all this stuff, you'll have to some extent, understand wattage of the light, wattage of the battery, and so on. So I want to go over our books. We are publishing books on all these. This is a book that I talked about. Okay, these are all on Amazon. This one has to be on colors. So most people today do not learn this in regular schools, K through 12. They don't learn this. Some schools do, but it's called digital colors. Another thing is called HDMI colors because it primarily was taught to non-professionals to do web programming. But when you get into digital colors, okay, you're into a totally different color system. You go from 0 to 255, okay? And then you do that for R, for G, and B. Red, green, blue, and then probably white and black. So that means you have 255 colors, okay, times 255, times 255, times 255. Now you're up into millions of colors, okay? So years ago, when we first came out with ultrasound, we had 64 shades of gray. No colors, just 64 shades of white and black. Okay, so now you have to know a lot more about colors for anything. So if you're going to buy a new laptop, you're going to buy a new microscope, you buy a new camera, if you're going to buy anything new that's colored, you must have some kind of reference like this available. Okay, this goes through that. And then if you are into the math, you'll learn the difference between 8-bit color, 10-bit color, and 24-bit color. So color today is no longer a box of crayons. Most of this color should be taught a minimum at the junior year of high school, for sure in college. But sadly enough, a lot of it is not taught because a lot of people still don't understand it, and it moves so quick. The first color scheme came out the year I was born, 1931. Now we're up to 2022. That's the number of colors that we've added, the way we manipulate the colors, and the protocols. So when you get in there to fly your drone or do microscopy work, you might have to know how to set it up. To do editing with the editing that we're going to be using for this, I can set it up with CEI, which is the system that came out first when I was born in 1931. Or I can take it through, and with that I can decide if I want crayons, probably go back to 1929. Okay, I probably don't even need 1931. But this is where color wheels come in. We've already talked about the color wheel in great extent. So we'll go over the color wheel, but you need to understand the color wheel here, the other thing I want to cover, listen girls, listen close, this is important now, because we're talking money. $12,000, $400, $200 makes a big difference. All the lenses you buy will be color corrected, okay? Then it's a matter of how good they color correct it and therefore how much it is. So most of these will have what we call cheap lenses, and the word I believe is achromatic. So you'll have to look that up and see what terminology they give it as you move up. So these are all cheap lenses, okay? They're the cheap range. But even a filter for a microscope, just a filter, sometimes it's a telescope, is $400. So it's not uncommon where pretty soon an attachment becomes higher price than the device. And you've got to decide which way you want to go. This is where hopefully you'll listen to people, read books, listen to these young people as they get older, and tell the people who are older what they should know, okay? As I said, I was just telling them that I got an email that says, most of you people over 40 use AI the way you did previously with cut and paste, which is antique, is not the power of artificial intelligence. So now we've got artificial intelligence that can do a lot of things better and faster than the human brain with neural networks. So we need to learn them, okay? The young ones are learning it. By the time they're on a high school or college, they will know it. So here we have, tell them who you are.
Billy. Billy?
Okay. It might not come through. So,
Haley.
okay. They're both a younger group. We just got one hope. Group just graduated from high school last year and this year. They've gone 7 years with Mecca now. So there's now younger ones at the middle school level that we'll hopefully bring up for the next few years. So they're going to get a lot of things here that will help them in school if they listen closely and do some good reading. So thank you all for watching.